ghosts, ghouls, demons, dolls and nuns, the Conjuring Universe knows what's scary and gives us them all. No clowns though. Interesting. The films range in quality from downright bad to pretty darn good. There's the core entries focusing on Ed and Lorraine and their adventures in ghost and demon hunt. Then there are the spin-offs focused on the evil things thereafter. But which are the good ones and which are the bad ones? Which are the scary ones and which are not? Well, I'm about to tell you what I think, because I am going to go through every single entry into the Conjuring universe thus far, as of January 2023 that is, and put them in order, from the worst to the best. It's the Conjuring universe of movies, ranked.
Sometimes demons can attach themselves to objects.
What do I do? Protect your family.
The first Annabelle movie is what you would call not good. It shows us how the Annabelle doll found its way into the basement of Ed and Lorraine. It moved from one house, survived a weird Manson family-like murder, then found itself moving into an apartment building. The film has a weird structure. About halfway through it ends, then it starts again in a new location. There are some decent jump scares like this one.
Who are you?
But the main characters just aren't that likable. The story rushes along in certain regards, and a certain character makes a very brash, unearned decision towards the end of the film, which results in the bad guys winning. Sort of. As an introduction to the infamous Annabelle doll, it's disappointing. It's a film that feels like it was made purely to grab some cash and extend the franchise, without a lot of thought being put into it.
The Curse of La Llorona.
The Curse of La Llorona is one of the more extreme entries into the Conjuring universe. Extreme in the sense that a lot of what happens in this film is borderline fantasy. It takes the folklore myth of La Llorona, adds in the great Linda Cardellini, it gives us a small scale but bonkers haunted house story. On paper it sounds great. There are some decent characters in there, they're all a little hokey and cliche and not at all realistic. And the film has a good atmosphere, with some moments of levity.
Oh, that's a trick. I saw it on Johnny Carson.
Mom?
Ta-da!
Did you see that on Carson?
As a horror film, however, it lacks the scares, opting instead for classic jump scares and shock value more than anything else. And towards the back end of the film, things start to get pretty crazy, and the characters start to say and do some really stupid stuff. Also, except for a small cameo, this film feels very detached from every other entry in the series though so far.
Sister, please. This way. Hello?
is a lot like The Curse of La Llorona. They are in many ways the same film but in a different setting with different characters. This one really takes the religious iconography and doubles down on the horrific scary elements of it. But in doing so it ends up venturing way too far, entering a more action-packed fantastical area of film rather than horror. Its characters are somewhat interesting, they all harbour secrets, strengths and fears, and they're well cast, but the situation they're in rapidly grows in severity and ridiculousness. The film gets extra points because of its sets, its tone, atmosphere and use of period decoration.
Lorraine, you need to come back. Is saving him worth everything you have? Because that's what it may very well cost.
Lorraine!
We're really making a big jump in quality in this ranking now with The Conjuring: The Devil Made Me Do It. The Conjuring is of course the heart and soul of this franchise, as are the characters of Ed and Lorraine. And in many ways this film realizes that and delivers on it. In some regard, literally. Yeah, Ed gets a heart condition and their romance is key to the story. This time around, instead of investigating a haunted house, Ed and Lorraine have to prove somebody was possessed by a demon when they committed a murder. Good luck with that one. It's an interesting twist on the formula and it proves that there is still some fresh content to be had in this franchise. This is more of a thriller than a horror movie, with action scenes and big dramatic moments scattered throughout it. The cast are great, the atmosphere and tone are good, and overall I would call this a fun horror movie, or as fun as a serious horror movie can ever get.
Annabelle is the beacon for other spirits.
She wants us.
Speaking of fun, Annabelle Comes Home is also what I'd call a fun horror movie. This time around, a group of teens gather in Ed and Lorraine's house while they are away, and naturally, they're dipshits and they end up venturing into the basement, releasing the ghostly demonic presences held within, including Annabelle. This film really plays around with the lore and the cameos and the possibilities of this franchise. It explores the house and basement of Ed and Lorraine in more ways than any of the prior movies. It develops their daughter as a character with a good performance from McKenna Grace, and it has a little bit of a twist towards the end with a unique and I think clever form of exorcism. It's not the scariest thing ever, but it harkens back to classic 70s style horrors and it's entertaining. I like that.
Annabelle?
Annabelle Creation really looks at what made some of the Conjuring films good and then just does that again. After the first Annabelle movie, they really couldn't do any worse. And as the title suggests, this is all about the creation of Annabelle. A group of orphans stays in a creepy house in the middle of God only knows where after a young girl is killed in a driving accident. As you might expect, their arrival coincides with the rise of weird things happening in that house. The film plays around with the idea of the protagonist. It keeps you guessing, it throws in some twists, and it does a decent job at explaining how Annabelle came to be. Two people literally made a deal with the devil. It's not very smart, but it's an explanation. This is essentially a Conjuring movie without the safety of Ed and Lorraine. There are some good horror movies, lots of tension and a great cast, although far too many characters, and it does a decent job at tying into the first movie, making sense of a certain moment in that film.
If we keep doing this, you're going to die.
The second Conjuring movie is basically just the first again, and that's not a bad thing. This time, Ed and Lorraine head to Enfield in England and investigate the Enfield incident, an incident I actually knew about prior to seeing this film. There's a pointless bit of trivia for you right there. Like the first Conjuring, the horror impacts the kids more than the adults, and naturally it takes a while for the adults to clock on. Then, like a lot of these movies, as it enters the third act, things escalate and the action and thrills start to take over from the horror. There's also a lot of tension and atmosphere, and even moments of levity. The Conjuring II is too long. It has too many characters and it lacks originality because it's so similar to the first one. But otherwise it does everything pretty well, and it's kinda scary.
There's a lady in a dirty nightgown that I see in my dreams. She's standing in front of my mom's bed. Do you want to see him?
Yeah?
When the music stops, you see him in the mirror standing behind you.
The first Conjuring movie is of course the best of the franchise. It set the example of what this franchise could be. It set a template that many of the other films tried to copy, and many of them did so pretty well. It also introduced us to Ed and Lorraine, established their romance, their skills, and so on and so forth. In the process, it has a brilliant haunted house location that's well realised and detailed. It has some genuinely bone-chilling scares and surprises. It builds tension well, it sets a good atmosphere, it explores its characters in detail, and it doesn't outstay its welcome. This is legit a really good film that also happens to be a horror movie. I would argue it's up there as one of the best horror movies ever made. Maybe not in the top 5, but definitely in the top 10. And that's the Conjuring Universe ranked, or as I see it. And you probably think very differently, so let me know in the comments and feedback what your ranking would be. And of course, subscribe to my channel for more content like this, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Grant Burton if you want as well. Until next time though, I've been Grant Burton, thanks for watching.